Now to our monitors in the Middle East. Secretary of State Antony Blinken back in Israel, marking his 11th trip to the region since the war in Gaza erupted. The secretary sat down with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, and that meeting lasted more than 2 hours. The mission of this trip: revive ceasefire negotiations. Meanwhile, in northern Gaza, men, women, and children escaping by foot after evacuation orders from the Israeli military to separate Hamas fighters from civilians. CBS News foreign correspondent Ramy Inocencio is in Israel for us with more on the secretary's trip.
Liz, hi there. Yeah, in the past few hours and really all through this afternoon, rocket sirens have been sounding throughout northern Israel. And this morning we woke up to air raid alarms here in Tel Aviv. Sirens went off at about 7:45 a.m. Then we heard the booms of Iron Dome missile interceptions from our shelters here. That was just a couple hours before Antony Blinken landed. Israel's military said that Hezbollah fired about 20 projectiles in total at northern and central Israel just this morning. Hezbollah said that it targeted multiple sites, and that included an Iron Dome battery near the city here, and that it bombed the base for a military intelligence unit, 8200 outside Tel Aviv. That unit is understood to be responsible for those pager attacks and those walkie-talkie attacks on Hezbollah that we reported last month. Now, up in Lebanon, President Biden's special envoy is still there trying to work towards a peace between Israel and Hamas. Now, as for Secretary Blinken, this is his 11th time to Israel in 12 months to try to find a way to a ceasefire here, and that ceasefire continues to be the same word: elusive. The last time he was here was the last time that I was here back in August. And since then, we know Israel has opened up a second front of fighting with Lebanon in the north. Iran retaliated against Israel with about 200 missiles. We're expecting Israel to retaliate here. We have been on standby, and the heads of Hamas and Hezbollah, we know, are now dead. The situation is arguably more tense, and the balance of power appears to have shifted to Netanyahu's favor. Blinken is meeting Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, Defense Minister Yoav Gallant, and other officials throughout the day before traveling elsewhere in the region to continue this push for peace. Liz.
CBS News foreign correspondent Ramy Inocencio from Israel. Thank you so much. Meanwhile, we're learning new details of that 2-hour meeting between Secretary of State Antony Blinken that he held with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, during that meeting, Blinken underscored the need to capitalize on the death of Yahya Sinwar, including securing the release of all hostages and ending this conflict in Gaza. CBS News contributor Robert Berger joins us now. Robert, there was hope when the news came down that when Yahya Sinwar was killed, that there would be incentive for new talks of a ceasefire with Hamas. But in fact, Sinwar's death has made that even more complicated. Can you explain why?
Yeah, I mean, you need an address in order to negotiate, and Sinwar was that address. He was the undisputed authority and leader of Hamas. So he was the one making the decisions on whether to make a deal with Israel on the hostages. By the way, he was considered by the U.S. and Israel to be the main obstacle to a deal. But at least he was an address. He was someone with whom you were negotiating. Now, the mediators, U.S., Egypt, and Qatar, have to find new interlocutors with whom to discuss a deal and who actually would have the authority to make a deal.
Now, what about those hostages still in Gaza today? Is it possible they could be in even more danger now that Sinwar is dead?
Definitely more danger. There's about 100 Israeli hostages left in Gaza, of whom about 65 are believed to be alive. The problem is, Sinwar, he did have control and authority. Of course, that's been decimated now with the war, but now you don't even know really where all the hostages are, most likely. It's believed that they're not only being held by Hamas, but by various clans as well as the Islamic Jihad group, and they may all have different demands. And also, with each passing day, there's concern, especially among the families, but everyone in Israel, about whether they're being held in very bad conditions in these tunnels, most likely. And there's concern about whether they'll be able to make it home alive.
And who's going to step up to be the leader of Hamas? As you know, Sinwar, we know he has a brother, Mohammed, who is said to be even more brutal, if that's even possible, than his brother. Is it possible he will rise up as the new leader of Hamas?
Mohammed has been the one that's been named as the probable successor, but there are going to be others who try to take over the helm. There's a political leadership in Qatar, a couple of leaders there who have been around for a while. One name is Khalid Meshal. It's really not clear who is going to be able to take over. And again, Hamas is a group in disarray right now. Their top leadership, both military and political, have been assassinated by Israel. So, but it does look like whoever takes over, most likely they'll continue the hard line of Hamas, which is seeking the destruction of Israel.
CBS News contributor Robert Berger from Jerusalem, reporting on Jerusalem. Thank you so much, Robert.